a farm in northern Alberta, around a little town called Teepee Creek, actually. Population 2216 when the Smiths were on vacation in the summer. And, you know, I learned the value of hard work, of respecting property, of helping out your neighbor. And, you know, these are the values that inspired me to run for politics. You know, I feel like a lot of these values are missing. I actually had no aspirations ever to be a politician. 6 months ago, if you were to tell me that I'd be sitting up on stage talking about politics and running for office, I would have thought you were crazy, to be honest with you. This isn't something that I aspired to, but it's something that I was inspired to do because I just see a need for someone to step up for this community. I see a need for someone to stand up, take a stand for this community. That's something that I've done my whole life. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's no secret that we're getting the short end of the stick here in this region. You know, this region is, from my perspective, the major economic force in Canada. This region generates a lot of wealth and a lot of money. A few days ago, June 9th, was actually Tax Freedom Day. Many of you may not know what that is, but that means that if you pay all your taxes for the year up front, June 9th on average is when most of you will have stopped working for the benefit of our government, for the benefit of buying voters and special interest groups. That money goes directly to Ottawa, and of course we know it never returns to us. So my goal as party leader of the Libertarian Party is to stand up on the House floor and demand that stop. We need to stop sending so much money and power to Ottawa. We need to cut off the dependence. As far as I know, other parties will want you to rely on them to get you the infrastructure they need. Well, you know, Fort McMurray and this region are some of the most charitable per capita people in Canada. And so we need to be able to trust that we're going to be able to build the communities we want with the resources we generate.
Thank you. Tim?
So I imagine that, that like me, many of you are descendants of recent immigrants to this country. You know, my great-grandfather came from Stalinist Russia to Canada, lost family members along the way, and he didn't come here for a free ride. He didn't come here to get looked after by the Canadian government. He lived in a grain bin in Lethbridge with his family, and he planted crops in the ditch to make a better life for his family, and he did. And I don't imagine that any other people that come here from other countries or from around the world are appreciably different in their intent than my great-grandfather was. And the stats back me up. I mean, this country was made great by immigrants. And we have a bit of a broken system. We don't have a pathway to citizenship that we need. It's not quick enough, it's not responsive enough to Canadian business. And as a small business owner myself, I can tell you it's very difficult to find good help these days, and it's very expensive. And I just can't produce the kind of product that I'd like to in the amount of product I'd like to, because it's difficult to find workers. And so I can definitely sympathize and appreciate what businesses are going through these days. I had the opportunity to work with Neil Young last summer on a film, and you know, he came to town, and I tried to offer him opportunity to look at all the great things that we're doing in our region, the eco-entrepreneurship, the community spirit. In town at the time was a solar-powered stage and a vegetable oil-powered carnival, and he could have sang a song up there. These are all things I suggested to Neil, and instead he was there to blast our community. And this kind of feels like the story of our life in the oil sands. People come here to look at the dirt, they come here to look at the ugly, and they come here to promote it and sell it. And my goal, you know, after Neil Young came to town, I wrote this article that got a lot of attention nationally. I was all over the news across the country, you know, calling Neil out on his hypocrisy. And since then, I've had the opportunity to work with other media outlets and environmentalists and influence their story. And so I'm a big proponent of oil sands, and I'm a big proponent of being proud of the product we bring to the world. We bring a valuable product to the world that we ought to be proud of. And yes, we do need to get better in terms of respecting property rights. For example, with Aboriginal people, they're having property rights infringed on land that they homestead, just like my dad homesteaded a field and plowed it up and made it his. Aboriginal people are homesteading land, they're hunting, they're fishing, they're trapping. That land really belongs to them. And we ought to respect that and give them the power to regulate what happens on their land. And if they want to live a subsistence life, live a subsistence life. If they want to develop oil sands and pipelines and have all sorts of environmental rules, let's put the power in their hands instead of in a bureaucrat's hands in Ottawa or Edmonton. To me, the people that create this, that create the value, are the people that are out there working, that are digging in the dirt, that are creating innovation. You know, in Fort McMurray, we have people creating greenhouses that run off methane from landfill gas. These are the people that are creating value, and we need to be looking to them, not government, to manage and create a brighter future for ourselves. These people are doing it, and we just need to allow them to do it. So, I'm actually the party leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada, and so I answer only to my constituents. And you know, the libertarian politics are very simple. Don't use force to get your way in the world. Don't, you know, respect individual rights. That's the only requirement we have of our politicians, is don't initiate legislation, don't initiate laws that are going to violate human rights and property rights. And so, as party leader, that is what I expect of my party members. And, you know, when I'm Prime Minister in 2015, fingers crossed, that's probably going to be good for this region. So, I mean, I kind of answered this a little bit by explaining in the first question that we want to stem the tide of capital leaving this region right now. We want to stop money leaving your pocket so that we don't have to beg for it to come back in the ways that we want. And one of the things I have on my agenda over the next year as we go into the general election as party leader is a team of people, including people from free market economic think tanks, experts in Aboriginal affairs and free market environmental protection, working with me to create a plan to restore Canada. And part of that is you know, returning money to your pocket, returning control over infrastructure back to the local communities, because you know, like the Green Party candidate said on the end, the people in your community that you see face to face that help you change your tire are the ones that are most invested in your community. And I don't have to tell you that I've got a history of standing up to bullies and authority and making my opinion and my residents and my community members' opinion heard very strongly. You know, I've garnered international attention just with this campaign on a very limited budget, and you can expect more of that if I'm on a bigger stage representing you in Ottawa. And one of the things with inflation is that you have to understand the root cause of it. You have to have a understanding of basic economics. And you know, we have this collusion in our banking system. We have this kind of oligarchy in a central bank that artificially determines interest rates, that manipulates the economy. Right now, our dollar should be at least double what the US dollar is. But there's a lot of nefarious corruption that goes on behind the scenes. You know, our central bank colludes with the Fed, and there's a lot of people profiting from this inflation. And so one of the things we need to do is return banking and money back to the people. We need to give power back to the people to control the money and the banking as well, and take it out of the hands of these oligarchs. Yeah, well, I mean, I have roots laid down in this community. I've lived here for 13 years. My family is here. So I have no intention of moving my family out of this community to the cesspool called Ottawa. I'm going to be flying in and out of that place and doing the job that needs to be done, and then getting out of Dodge and back to my community to live here with the people in my community. You know, I believe that most people in my community are actually libertarians. They're hardworking, they respect life and property, they're among the most charitable and community-minded people in Canada. All we stand for as a party is the very thing that the Fathers of Confederation stood for. It's respect for life and property, and they understood that government's proper role is to protect individual liberty and allow you to flourish and allow you to provide value for your community and look at the country that we built.